Plumes of black smoke rise during an Israeli airstrike at the seaport of Gaza City. On May 14, 2021, Gaza City, Palestinians grabbed their children and belongings and fled neighbourhoods on the outskirts of Gaza City on Friday as Israel unleashed a heavy barrage of artillery fire and airstrikes, killing a family of 6 in their home. Israel said it was clearing a network of militant tunnels ahead of a possible ground invasion. Israel has massed troops along the border and called up reservists as fighting intensifies with the Islamic militant group Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip. Palestinian militants have fired some rockets, and the Israeli military has launched more than 600 airstrikes, toppling at least 3 high-rise apartment buildings, and has shelled some areas with tanks stationed near the frontier. As Israel and Hamas plunged closer to all-out war despite international efforts at a ceasefire, communal violence in Israel erupted for a 4th night. Jewish and Arab mobs clashed in the flashpoint town of Lod, even after Israel dispatched additional security forces. The Gaza Health Ministry says the toll from the fighting has risen to 119 killed, including 31 children and 19 women, with 830 wounded. The Hamas and Islamic Jihad militant groups have confirmed 20 deaths in their ranks, though Israel says that number is much higher. 7 people have been killed in Israel, including a 6-year-old boy and a soldier. Palestinians living outside Gaza City, near the northern and eastern frontiers with Israel, fled the intense artillery bombardment on Friday. Families arrived at the UN-run schools in the city in pickup trucks, on donkeys and by foot, hauling pillows and pans, blankets and bread. We were planning to leave our homes at night, but Israeli jets bombarded us, so we had to wait until the morning, said Hadaya Maruf, who fled with her extended family of 19 people, including 13 children. We were terrified for our children, who were screaming and shaking. In the northern Gaza Strip, Rafat Tanani, his pregnant wife and 4 children, aged 7 and under, were killed after an Israeli warplane reduced their 4-story apartment building to rubble, residents said. 4 strikes hit the building at 11 p.m., just before the family was going to sleep, Rafat's brother Fadi said. The building's owner and his wife were also killed. It was a massacre, said Sadala Tanani, another relative. My feelings are indescribable. Colonel Jonathan Conarkis, a military spokesman, said tanks stationed near the border fired 50 rounds. It was part of a large operation that also involved airstrikes and was aimed at destroying tunnels beneath Gaza City used by militants to evade surveillance and airstrikes that the military refers to as the Metro. As always, the aim is to strike military targets and to minimize collateral damage and civilian casualties, he said. Unlike our very elaborate efforts to clear civilian areas before we strike high-rise or large buildings inside Gaza, that wasn't feasible this time. The strikes came after Egyptian mediators rushed to Israel for ceasefire talks that showed no signs of progress. Egypt, Qatar and the United Nations were leading the truce efforts. The fighting broke out late on Monday when Hamas fired a long-range rocket at Jerusalem in support of Palestinian protests there against the policing of a flashpoint holy site in efforts by Jewish settlers to evict dozens of Palestinian families from their homes. Since then, Israel has attacked hundreds of targets in Gaza, causing earth-shaking explosions in densely populated areas. Of the rockets Gaza militants have fired, more than 400 fell short or misfired, according to the military. The rockets have brought life in parts of southern Israel to a standstill, and several barrages have targeted the seaside metropolis of Tel Aviv, some 70 kilometers, 45 miles, from Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to continue the operation, saying in a video statement that Israel would extract a very heavy price from Hamas. In Washington, as President Joe Biden said he spoke with Netanyahu about calming the fighting but also backed the Israeli leader by saying, there has not been a significant overreaction. He said the goal now is to get to a point where there is a significant reduction in attacks, particularly rocket attacks. He called the effort a work in progress. Israel has come under heavy international criticism for civilian casualties during 3 previous wars in Gaza, which is home to more than 2 million Palestinians. It says Hamas is responsible for endangering civilians by placing military infrastructure in civilian areas and launching rockets from them. Hamas showed no signs of backing down. It fired its most powerful rocket, the Ayash, nearly 200 kilometers, 120 miles, into southern Israel on Thursday. The rocket landed in the open desert but briefly disrupted flight traffic at the southern Ramon airport. Hamas has also launched 2 drones that Israel said it quickly shot down. Hamas military spokesman Abu Obaida said the group was not afraid of a ground invasion, which would be a chance to increase our catch of Israeli soldiers. The current eruption of violence began a month ago in Jerusalem. A focal point of clashes was Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque, on a hilltop compound revered by Jews and Muslims. Israel regards all of Jerusalem as its capital, while the Palestinians want East Jerusalem, which includes sites sacred to Jews, Christians and Muslims, to be the capital of their future state. The violent clashes between Arabs and Jews in Jerusalem and other mixed cities across Israel has added a new layer of volatility to the conflict not seen in more than 2 decades. The violence continued overnight into Friday. A Jewish man was shot and seriously wounded in Lod, the epicenter of the troubles, and Israeli media said a second Jewish man was shot. In the Tel Aviv neighborhood of Jaffa, an Israeli soldier was attacked by a group of Arabs and hospitalized in serious condition. Police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld said some 750 suspects have been arrested since the communal violence began earlier this week. He said police had clashed overnight with individuals in Lod and Tel Aviv who hurled rocks and firebombs at them. The fighting deepened a political crisis that has sent Israel careening through 4 inconclusive elections in just 2 years. After March elections, Netanyahu failed to form a government coalition. Now his political rivals have 3 weeks to try to do so. Those efforts have been greatly complicated by the fighting. His opponents include a broad range of parties that have little in common. They would need the support of an Arab party, whose leader has said he cannot negotiate while Israel is fighting in Gaza. Facebook Ketchup Mitalamalad block test, why?